Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Karen Huberman, and it's my honour to be your Mistress of Ceremonies. Thank you for attending the 44th Battalion Memorial Service. This will be the 10th hour of the service and our formal tour throughout the day. I'd like to start by recognising the special guests and the support we have present for this ceremony. Mr. Andrew Devane from the RSLWA, Professor Gavin Wood, the Royal Australian Navy Band of Western Australia, the Irish Pipe Band, and 7 Wing, Australian Air Force Cadet Band. We also have Churchland Senior High School. I would like everybody please to stand for the mounting of the vigil. Thank you. Please be seated. I'd now like to call on the Director of the 44th Australian Infantry Battalion Memorial, Mr. Luke Anderson, who will explain the ceremony.
Hello, my name is Luke Anderson. I am the founder and director of the 44th Australian Infantry Battalion Memorial and the great-grandson of John McCann, who served in that unit. I am also a trooper in the Australian Army Reserves. I created the 44th Battalion Memorial in March of this year because I saw a real lack of recognition for this particular unit. It was one of 5 battalions raised in Western Australia during the Great War. However, it is the only one to no longer exist, having been disbanded in 1960. As such, it has started to become forgotten over the years. They did not have their own physical cenotaph, and until now they did not have their banner march on Anzac Day. The stories of the thousands of men who served the battalion and the 482 who paid the supreme sacrifice in defence of our country are at real risk of fading away. This is the first memorial service dedicated solely to the 44th Battalion in many years, as the old association ceased to exist long ago. There will be 15 ceremonies today, going from brilliance and dust, each one representing a different battle and having different songs, poems, and stories. The names of all the soldiers of the 44th Battalion unrolled will be read throughout the day. The main ceremony took place at 11 a.m, where His Excellency the Governor soldiers alive. This is quite a demanding project, as even if we complete one soldier a day, it will take over 6 years to complete. Luckily, many members of the community donate their time to complete the biographies of these soldiers. The memorial also conducts ceremonies for individual soldiers, the goal being to individually commemorate every soldier in the battalion. I thank you all for attending and hope that you find this a meaningful service.
Thank you, Director. I will now read out the story of the 44th Battalion, the Australian Imperial Force. Raised in Claremont in January 1916, it was the last battalion to be raised in Western Australia during the war. It originally left Western Australia with 1,000 men under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Mainsbridge on the 6th of June 1916 and arrived in England the following month to continue their training. They nicknamed themselves Old Bill's 1,000. Another 1,500 men joined the 44th Battalion as reinforcements over the following 18 months. The 44th Battalion, AIF, arrived in France in late November 1916 and the following month was sent to the front line of the Armatories sector, and over a period of 3 months the battalion suffered nearly 70 killed from constant attritional warfare. From May to August 1917, the 44th Battalion fought brutal engagements at Messines and suffered nearly 130 killed in the deadliest overall engagement for the unit. Lieutenant Colonel James Clark took over command of the unit after the battle and would remain in command until the end of the war. The deadliest month of their entire service came in October 1917, shortly after the Battle of Messines, when they were committed to the hellish fighting at Passchendaele and Brudenstedt. In the span of less than 3 weeks, the battalion suffered over 90 killed and 750 wounded or sick, a casualty rate of 84%. After months of recovering, the 44th Battalion was desperately committed to slow down the advance of the German Spring Offensive from March to May 1918, suffering nearly 60 killed, but successfully halting the enemy advance in one of the most chaotic operations of the war, often not knowing where the front line was. On the 4th of July 1918, the West Australians fought alongside the Americans in one of the first engagements, the Battle of Hammer, suffering 30 killed in a single day. The month of August 1918 saw the battalion fight and win in 2 decisive battles, the Battle of Amiens and the Second Battle of the Somme. From this point onwards, the Imperial German Army was in constant retreat until the end of the war, 100 days later. The battalion suffered only 25 killed during these battles, but seized vast amounts of territory and took many prisoners. The first operation of the war for the 44th Battalion was to cross St. Quentin Canal, take Mount St. Quentin and breach the heavily defended Hindenburg Line. This occurred on the 29th of September 1918. All of the 44th Battalion's objectives were seized on the first day, though at the cost of 30 killed. From the remainder of the war, the 44th Battalion was now down to just 1 company's strength as reinforcements. It ceased arriving for half the war. Only 80 men were capable of fighting. As such, it conducted rear duties until the armistice. During the war, the 44th Battalion, AIF, fought in nearly 24 engagements and received 16 battle honours. 2,642 men had served with the battalion, of whom 1,793 had become casualties, with 482 paying the supreme sacrifice. This represents a casualty rate of 68% and a death rate of 18%. For their service, members of the battalion received 125 awards for gallantry in action, 19 awards for leadership in action, 5 awards for other acts of service, 11 foreign awards from the United States, Belgium and France, and one man was anointed into an order of Chile. After the war, the 44th Battalion was reformed as Citizens Military Forces Unit, consisting of 3 companies in Perth and 1 company in Bunbury. In the 1920s, it received King's Colours, regimental colours, a cap badge depicting a grass tree, a motto, an alliance with the Essex Regiment, and the regimental name became the West Australian Rifles. This unit continued to serve until 1960, being on home defence duties during Second World War. Its lineage continues on today as the Royal Western Australian Regiment. I'd like to call on Professor Gavin Wood, who's going to read the story of the Christmas at the front line.
Thank you, Karen. Good afternoon. My name's Gavin Wood, and as Karen has just said, I'm honoured to be invited to tell the story of Christmas at the front line. After the extensive casualties suffered during the Battle of Passchendaele, the battalion spent the next month recovering, regaining their shattered morale. Parades were relaxed, concerts were organised, and football matches were regularly played. Many soldiers and officers were sent away on courses, and some on leave. Games were organised on a more extensive scale than ever before. During the afternoons, without exception, every man took an active part in either a game of football, hockey, or mobbing. The game of mobbing was a unique one made on the Western Front. This game took place on any old ground with goalposts at each end, these goalposts being made, the Hessian bag filled with straw. Equal numbers of men on each side, from 20 to 40. There were no rules, excepting that the ball must not be kicked, unusually for football, and the object was to force or throw it through the opposing side's goalposts. It was strenuous, easily learned, and caused great excitement between companies and platoons. The simple game, on account of the fact that everyone could play it, once playing, infected everyone with the spirit of it, and was responsible for the battalion attaining a very high standard of physical fitness. The 44th Battalion then moved to the Le Bizet sector, a very quiet part of the front. Only 2 encounters were made with the Germans. The first was a small Australian victory, but the second resulted in Lieutenant Crawley being captured. He refused to be taken prisoner, and whilst struggling, he was shot in the head. Lieutenant Crawley had been detailed to proceed to England in 2 days' time for 6 months' duty in the training camp. He was not ordered to go out on that patrol, but because some of his own platoon were going out, he elected to go out with them, as he said, for the last time. A new second lieutenant, Dobson, marched into the battalion around this time. He was about 40 years old, was a well-known figure in Perth business circles prior to his enlistment. He was stout, good-tempered, and energetic. He was placed in command of 3 platoon, which instead of numbering 40 men as it should, consisted of only 2 men, as all the others were dead or in hospital. This platoon was at first ridiculed as a joke, but with a trickle of new reinforcements coming in, he turned his platoon into one of the best in the battalion. He fussed round them, got this for them, got that for them, and carried out to the letter the official pamphlet describing the duties of the platoon commander. He personally carried his entire kit during all of the marches, often over 25 kilometres a day, which was not common for officers. From November 1917 to March 1918, the battalion was mostly at peace. They trained in the new platoon structure, which consisted of a bombing section, a rifle grenadier section, a Lewis gun section, and a rifle section. With these 4, each with its own special weapon, it was possible for a platoon commander to organise little schemes for each platoon in attack, which would bring out the characteristics of each weapon. During this period, only 8 men of the battalion were killed.
Thank you, Gavin. Throughout the day, the names of 482 soldiers of the 44th Battalion who paid the supreme sacrifice will be and have been read out. In this particular hour, 4 speakers will each read out 10 of the names. I now call on Andrew Tabane, Professor Gavin Wood and the Memorial Director to come and assist me with the reading of the honour roll. Mr. Andrew Tabane.
Thank you very much. It's a great honour to be able to read out these 10 names with 40 years full-time service myself. It's a real privilege. Corporal Colin Wilson Ogborn, he was a cabinet maker from West Australia, killed in action at Brenzendine Ridge, 4th of October 1917, aged 23. Corporal Stephen Ogman, bank clerk from Boulder, died of wounds during German Spring Offensive, 31st of March 1918, aged 23. Private Michael O'Grady, he was a labourer from North Fremantle, killed in action during the big raid, 14th of March 1917, aged 30. Private Joseph O'Mara, a carpenter from Middleswan, killed in action, breaching the Hindenburg Line, 29th of September 1918, aged 30. Private John Terence O'Neill, a mill hand from Jarradale, killed in action at Mezzanines, 10th of July 1917, aged 19. Private Frank O'Reilly, a farmhand from Perth, killed in action during the big raid, 14th of March 1917, aged 26. Private John Branson Orr, a farmer from Esperance, killed in action at Passchendaele, 20th of October 1917, aged 23. Private William Hamilton Ostberg, a labourer from Canning Bridge, killed in action at Passchendaele, 4th of October 1917, aged 22. Private John Oswald, an iron moulder from East Perth, died of wounds at Armentaries, 2nd of January 1917. He was aged 21. And Corporal Christopher Ryder Palmer, a farmer from Harvey, killed in action at Mezzanines on 4th of June 1917, aged 35. Thank you.
Station Master from Gosnells, killed in action at Hamel, 4th of July 1918, age 34. Sergeant Harold Fuller Parsons, Clark from Narrogin, killed in action at Passchendaele, 15th of October 1917, age 37. Private Thomas Wilson Patterson, timber worker, Bunbury, killed in action, Mont St Quintin, 29th of September 1918, age 24. Private William Hamilton Patterson, bookmaker in West Leederville, killed in action at Almantiers, 4th February 1917, age 34. Private William Paul, civil service clerk from Mount Morley, killed in action at Bizet, 23rd of December 1917, age 28. Private Horace William Pearson, chemist assistant, Leederville, killed in action breaching the Hindenburg line, 29th of September 1918, age only 22. Captain James Peat, a mine surveyor in Cottesloe, killed in action at Messines, 27th of June 1917, age 30. Private Arthur George Peterson, a railway employee in Meriden, killed in action at Messines, 10th of June 1917, age 35. Private George Phelps, a miner in Boulder, died during service, 21st of November 1916, age 28. Lance Sergeant Frederick Oliver Pierce, sawmill hand from Jarradale, killed in action at Brootsring Bridge, 4th of October 1917, age 26.
Private Charles Stammer Pinder, contractor from Albany, killed in action at the Bizet, 30th of March 1918, age 31. Private Arthur Pitchford, packer from Perth, died of wounds at Passchendaele, 22nd of October 1917. Age 22. Lieutenant Talbot Lawrence Pittman, engineer from Norwood, killed in action at Rutherford Bridge, 5th of October 1917, aged 26. Private Victor Randolph Faulkner, miner from Highgate, killed in action at Moran Court, 27th of May 1918, aged 27. Captain George Reginald Porter, soldier from Tasmania, died of wounds at Le Bizet, 10th of December 1917, age 28. Lance Corporal James Edward Prendergast, a civil servant from Perth, killed in action at Passchendaele, 4th of October 1917, aged 41. Private Vivian Preston, a labourer from Perth, killed in action at Messines, 5th of July 1917, aged 32. Private Marshall James Price, miner from Southampton, killed in action at Le Bizet, 30th of March 1918, age 44. Private Claude Archibald Bradley, a horse driver from Lion Mill, killed in action at Passchendaele, 5th of October 1917, age 20. Lance Corporal David Ray, a boilermaker from Claremont, died of wounds at Brunside Ridge, 5th of October 1917, age 25. Paige Pickford from Churchlands will read the rest of these.
Private Robert Ray, labourer from East Perth, died of wounds at Poperinghe, 5th of October 1970, at age 27. Private Edward Ernest Reed, fisherman from Romangey, killed in action breaching Hindenburg Line, 29th of September 1918, at age 25. Private Thomas Alfred Reed, farmhand detective, killed in action at Messines, 24th of June 1917, age 29. Corporal Ernest Ronan Godford Randall, bookkeeper from West Perth, killed in action at Past Chendale, 10th of October 1917, age 25. Private Alexander Murray Renton, carter from Talmaya, died of wounds at the Western Front, 1st of October 1918, age 19. Private Cyril Kelly Street, John Richardson, schoolteacher from Perth, killed in action during the German Spring Offensive on the 7th of April 1918, age 23. Private Stanley Ernest Ritson, seller from Leederville, killed in action at Messines, 9th of June 1917, age 20. Driver Hartman Herbert Ridley, freight carter from Perth, died of wounds at Warnington, 1st of August 1917, age 31. Lance Corporal Claudius Francis Roberto, hairdresser from North Perth, killed in action at Past Chendale on 10th of October 1917, age 19. Corporal Edward August Roberts, student from Cottesloe, killed in action at St. Vincent on the 28th of March 1918 at age 23.
There were Australian soldiers who were experts in close combat. They were physically and mentally tough, compassionate and courageous. They led by example. They strove to take the initiative. They were committed to learning and working for their team. They believed in trust, loyalty and respect for their country, their mates and the army. The rising sun was their badge of honour. They are Australian soldiers, always. Thank you to all of those who helped in the reading. I now call on the Memorial Director to read out the story of the German Spring Offensive.
On the 21st of March 1918, the Germans launched their final Hail Mary, the German Spring Offensive. They intended to overwhelm the Western Front with their new stormtroopers and reinforcements from the Eastern Front before the Americans could arrive in full force. They initially achieved massive success, shattering the British Fifth Army and recapturing territory they had lost over the previous 2 years. The 44th Battalion, as part of the 3rd Australian Division, was ordered to the south to stop the advance. All leave was cancelled. Officers were returned to the unit. The battalion arrived in the Somme region on the 27th of March, and each of the companies was split up to defend different villages. There was only one map available for every 100 men, and as such, it was difficult to find the locations they were to defend. As the men stumbled towards their defensive objectives, they were noticed by a German sentry, and a hail of machine guns opened up on A and C Company. There was absolutely no cover, the ground being perfectly flat with not even a shell hole. Flare after flare went up, turning night into day. No Germans could be seen, but the sharp commands of their officers could be plainly heard. Within just a few minutes, 20 men were killed and 60 were wounded, causing Captain Rockcliffe to order a withdrawal. Notwithstanding all these difficulties, however, the withdrawal to the fresh position was carried out, all the wounded and many of the dead being brought back also. The lines stabilised the next day, but at noon on the 30th of March, the Germans launched their main attack on the 44th Battalion. The cry came, "Fritz is coming over," and coming he was. From the village of Sally Lorette, they advanced in a body, for all the world like a huge crowd just dispersing on the completion of a football match in the village. They had congregated in the houses during the night, and at their 0 hour they burst forth practically in one vast crowd. The Australians were not long in getting going. A few isolated cracks, and then a rattle and roar of Lewis gun, machine gun and rifle fire. Lewis gunners with coats off and one boot on, just roused from sleep, were using their weapons with splendid effect. Rifles became hot, but the fire never slackened. In 10 minutes' time, the German attack was completely demoralised, and within half an hour he was driven to earth and shelter. B Company, consisting of 180 men, had to cover a frontage of nearly 2 kilometres, but in no place did the enemy get closer than 250 metres to the trench. Excepting for the still grey figures dotted all over the landscape, and an odd runner going for his life, with half a dozen Aussies having pot shots at him, the scene was as quiet as before the attack. The battalion remained in the sector for the next month, and suffered constant attritional casualties. 56 men of the 44th Battalion were killed during the German spring offensive, 23 during the initial ambush, 12 during the German charge, and 21 during the month-long war of attrition. The German spring offensive ultimately resulted in a defeat for the Germans and helped speed up the end of the war. They had suffered nearly 700,000 men killed, whilst the Allies had lost 850,000 men killed or wounded. However, the Allies could replace these losses, whilst the Germans could not. Many officers and men displayed acts of gallantry. During the main assault, Corporal Howard went forward and sent a hurl of bombs at one of the enemy sections, attempting to entrench. Sergeant Horner dashed across 50 yards of open ground so that he could set up his Lewis gun in a more favourable position.
Thank you. The Irish pipe band will now play a piece. By a West Australian soldier during the war and published in a local newspaper. Your flag and my flag, and oh how much it hurts. Your land and my vessels who keep living as one. Your heart and red, blue and love. One flag, the great flag, the flag that me and you glorifies all else besides, the red
Rose red and blood red, the stripes gleam forever. Snow white and soul white, the good family street. Sky blue and true blue, with stars to gleam all right, the glorious guardian of the day, a shelter through the night. Thank you, Paige.
We will now lay the wreaths at the base of the memorial. A wreath will be laid by the memorial director. Upon the conclusion of the laying of the official wreaths, I invite anyone in the audience to also lay a wreath if they have one. The pipers will now begin the lament. Thank you. I will now ask that everyone please stand for the reciting of the ode and remain seating for the last post, the 1 minute silence, the rouse, the Australian Royal Anthem and the Australian National Anthem. They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the sun going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them, lest we forget. please remain standing for the dismounting of the Catholic Party.
Unit, dismiss.
Thank you. Would you please be seated? I now invite the Memorial Director to give the closing address. I also ask everyone to take part in a full photo in front of the memorial at the conclusion of this specific ceremony.
That is the end of the ceremony. Thank you all for attending. I leave you with a quote by Captain Longmore regarding the 44th Battalion. While memory lives, however, the fighting 44th will never die. To be with them over there was a privilege and an honour, a glorious page in any man's life. And when the final evening comes to us all, and the last pipe has been smoked, it will be of the comrades who wore the blue and white oval patch that will be proudly thinking, theirs was a tradition that Australia will do well to perpetuate, whilst there's a growing generation of free men and free women left to be inspired by it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are those free men and women. Thank you.